Alright guys, Scrappy again. I hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. The CDL returns later this week. That means the rosters need to be locked in basically today. Do Cloud9 even have a roster to lock in? Yes, there have been rumours in recent days as to which players are going to accept their poverty offer, but Benjay says he spoke to encourage formally, potentially, of the Stallions red team to try and convince him not to take the offer, especially because he thinks it's a terrible offer in the first place, but also because it might well just be illegal. Very much enjoy to your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. Plenty of talked about ranked as always over the last couple of days now that it's here. As Bant says, I've got trust issues. Are these guys godlike, or is there a little bit more going on, right? As we understand, the players hop in there, the cheating accusations come around. Look, maybe there are a load of good players about, and to be fair, maybe Cloud9 need to be looking elsewhere if some of these guys reject their offer in addition. There was a bit of talk about the servers as well. I know the Lqgend did this tweet. There was this clip as well that Zuma runs into here on the Colossus. We'll talk a little bit more later today as well on what may or may not be happening with the map pool. But yeah, well, here we go. Challenge P1. Not a massive fan favourite hill, this one, really. Certainly the pro players generally don't seem to like it. Absolutely gunned off the heady. Was there ping in that? 61 ping BS, he says. Octane says the ranked servers this year feel so wonky. So intrigued to your thoughts on that. Couple of Lion Man cards. The fourth place team was the G2 Minnesota, as they are known this year. Their hardpoint record was good. A fair bit of that was on Colossus. As we know, Kremp was their best performer of the stage. Kremp's hardpoint and search performance really, really strong. Not just KD, but also impact in the other stats as well. Overload was the weaker mode for this team. Kind of impressed that they're only 5 in 6, given that their KDs are all negative, 9-5, 9-5, 9-2, 8-8. So they still find their way to a 5 in 6 overload record. Look, they looked pretty good online. I think they came third of that Monster Invitational kickoff tournament before the season began. When the season actually did begin, then things looked a little bit more shaky, but they turn up to the LAN and they really put on a show. They could even have beaten FaZe again to take them all the way further in the tournament, but fourth place I think is, justified. Whether they can maintain that, I think that's the key question, right? We're expecting Thieves to come back stronger. We're expecting FaZe, OpTic and Gentlemates not to go anywhere. So, whether that'll be as good as it gets for this team, I guess we'll see. But their record against FaZe does speak for itself at the moment. Of course, they did lose eventually to FaZe. These were the FaZe numbers. Some pretty remarkable ones in here, really. First of all, Abuzah with a 97 card. I think that certainly turned some heads. Look, I think Abuzah was verging on underrated last year. I think he's certainly started this year in a pretty similar vein. He has had a really good season so far. His search and destroy especially has been pretty impeccable. But even you look at overload, his ticks, like his points per 10 minutes is pretty much the highest of anyone, which is very impressive for his role. 97 card for him, a 97 card for Simp as well. That will come as not too much of a surprise. One of the more remarkable numbers on this whole graphic here is the first blood rate for 04. There has been a bit of talk about, okay, Abuzah's clearly not going anywhere, and for good reason. He's doing a great job. Drazah had a very difficult start to the stage, but as soon as Luka joins the sub-bench, he started to turn it around, and we definitely saw that at the LAN as well. He had a pretty good tournament. Look, these are overall cards. They consider online and LAN. For the upcoming Major 2, the cards will be majority online because there's 11 online matches and the teams will not be playing anywhere near that when they get to LAN. So yes, that is one of the questions. If these cards were LAN only, they would look different. We do LAN only cards at the end of the season, but there's just not enough series for too many teams to do proper LAN cards for now. Point being, on LAN, Drazah turned up. 04 was kind of exactly where you'd expect 04 to be, really. 0.99, 0.91, 0.92, mostly acceptable performances. The occasional stinker, just where he was last year, and look, seems to complement Simp pretty well. Look, if they could flip a switch and get JoeDeceives, I guess you probably do it. One of the more remarkable numbers, though, as I said, is this. So he has the most first bloods on the team in Search and Destroy. Simp has 20, Drazah has 20, Abuzah has 21, 04 has 22, but he has 39 deaths in the process, which I'm pretty sure is the worst first blood rate going in the whole league. Now, to the credit of FaZe, they're still able to turn that into an 11 in 7 Search and Destroy record, so obviously he's getting traded a lot. But 22 in 39 first blood rate is pretty horrific. So, look, it is kind of working for them right now. But that is something to look at regardless, because, yeah, those numbers certainly not where I thought they might be. But Simp obviously has been the standout for them so far this stage. If their hardpoint could get a little better, I mean, it has been the thing with FaZe teams in recent years, right? When they've been very solid at search, they've been usually pretty damn good at control. Of course, this year it's overload, where again, they look pretty excellent. It's the hardpoint, which is arguably the most important mode overall, given that you play it twice earlier in the series. Whatever, there's always debate on that with hardpoint and search. If they got a bit better at hardpoint, they'd be in an even better spot, you would imagine. We'll talk about the other teams later on today, but let's talk about this Cloud9 drama. CDL Highlight says, what is it about the Stallions producing some Burger King cards? Of course, they've also produced Mercules, so it is what it is. But Cloud9, over the last couple of days, this is the roster that has been started to be rumoured after Renegade, Kips, QK, among various others, turned down the opportunity to join this team, and, you know, you can't really blame them. There was actually this tweet that I saw as well, if it just loads up real quick, from one of the Falcons guys who says, QK will stay in challenges until a better opportunity comes along. He is a high-quality player with bigger ambition and clear goals. You know, bigger ambition than going to Cloud9. Again, that's the issue. Yeah, maybe you take the Cloud9 bag. It's not much of a bag. A little bit of pocket money, if anything. But look, he's hoping that there's going to be a better opportunity that comes along, and that may well be the case at some point. The question has been for many, should anyone even take this Cloud9 offer? As Ronnie said in the article the other day, we understand that these guys used to be getting paid $48,000. They've now dropped that to $24,000, which is absurdly low in the history of the Call of Duty League. Now, Ronnie interviewed Jack Etienne, and he talked about, well, actually, that's okay, because if they sell the microtransactions, then they will earn 100%. And obviously, he says prize earnings. What prize earnings are you talking about, right? You bomb out of the major top 12, you're probably not even going to Birmingham. That's the crazy thing about this team. You're forming this team that we talked about yesterday, so I'm not going to discuss the roster in great detail again, but the reality is the bottom two teams of these upcoming 11 qualifiers in Major 2 don't even go to Birmingham. So that's a fat zero before you've even got there. So, but I guess you'd have to play for flights, so maybe that's the strategy, right? Man, what an absolute mess. So, Benjay says, because Encourage is one of the players rumoured onto that roster, as is Okis, of course. Okis was kind of the first name that was doing the rounds. I think Zuma said there were some other names as well. And it seems like Zuma, maybe, you know, look, Encourage, take the offer, Stallion, go to the league. What I will say about this, before I share what Benjay says, is that the players that they're going to sign, if this is indeed the team, they're players that played not played badly, but they placed so badly at the LAN event in Dallas that they weren't in the conversation to join the Pro League. I think that's kind of remarkable about this. Spart, Renegade, Kips, QK, maybe a couple of others, they played well and they placed very well, mostly, at the LAN tournament. So as a result, they were considered to be the top prospects and challenges. However, the guys that didn't place as well, they didn't look so good, and therefore they weren't the top prospects. And as a result, they don't have the luxury, maybe, that QK has. Because QK, he's been cooking. He can say, all right, Cloud9, it's a pleasure, but I'll be waiting for a better opportunity. And he probably will get one. Whereas, for these guys, you know, this might be the chance, right? Like, a CDL offer is there on the table. You've got the chance to go to the Pro League and at least show what you're about, take a bit of pocket change, you know, work your part-time job if you need to pay the bills or whatever. So, look, maybe that's the only opportunity they were going to get just because they played so badly, which obviously doesn't look good on Cloud9. I'm not saying these guys couldn't be good players, but you know, they weren't getting offers flooding through the door, and that's where Cloud9 have ended up with, effectively, the players that weren't getting offers from anybody else, so they're looking, maybe they'll accept the Cloud9 deal. But Benjay says, the contract is so bad, it's shockingly, embarrassingly, potentially illegally low.
To be honest, like, I talked to Encourage yesterday. I'll be candid with you guys. I got to lay down on what the offer is. I told him I don't think he should take it. Candidly, what they are offering to people, I think, is laughable. To be honest, I think it's bad. I think I get why some of these players are thinking about it. They want the rep, they want the opportunity. But I mean, I personally think I personally think the salary amount is questionably low to the point where it's illegally low, right? And the promise of MTX revenue is not, how do I say this the right way? I think Jack is saying the MTX thing as a good faith thing, but I don't think that is like a hard line. Like, I don't think that's going to be like hard line, like 100% that money goes straight to the player. I think Dan's learning how to be a better teammate out of game. I will say that I don't think we've gotten the full story on what happened with Thieves. I think the OpTic one's been pretty talked about, but I don't know what the fuck happened with Thieves. I don't know if we'll ever get the full story on that. Get Dan again. Like, why didn't they just bring Dan back? That's the most confusing part of the whole situation. Because I get it. If they try to pack a punch Dan for MC, like, whatever. But like, and then upgrading Dill, I understand that for Tyler. Even though it hasn't worked out yet. Whatever. But like, why wouldn't they bring Dan back? That's so weird to me. Like, they now have a Dan-sized problem in their fucking team. So odd, bro. Very odd.
Yes. Félicitations pour le match. Tu ressenti un peu?
Benji also talked about Ghosty there. We'll come back to that in a second. But Encourage then tweeted this out. So, you know, preparing to fight off the hordes. Look, we'll see whether this deal gets accepted regardless. I think Benji's thoughts on whether it's illegally low are quite interesting, really, because well, I'm not exactly sure where Cloud9 are based and what that means from a legality perspective. It's Cloud9 New York, right? Now, in New York, the minimum wage, I don't really know how it works in this case, because I think the minimum wage is defined on an hourly basis, and then you base it off, okay, like a 40-hour work week. I don't really know how it works for a job like this, whether Cloud9 can say, oh, they're just, you know, they're just contractors or something like that. So I don't even really understand exactly how they could justify this, but you know, there is, first of all, that's not really anywhere close to a livable wage. I'm imagining that these guys are going to be remote anyway, because yes, it's Cloud9 New York, but Cloud9 as an organization are based, I think, out of LA and California, where there are definitely more strict worker rights rules than you might get elsewhere. And, well, I don't imagine they're going to be based out of there. Presumably these players are going to be based remotely wherever they are. They're going to take the Ravens philosophy of not having a team house. So there is that argument. Maybe the argument is that it's like, I don't know, restaurant staff, especially in the States, where they get underpaid, but it's like, well, you'll get the tips, so that makes it valid. I'm not 100% sure how it works. Maybe that's the idea here, whereas Benji says, Jack's saying, oh, well, don't worry, guys. Yeah, we're underpaying you, but you're going to get that microtransactions back, right? Just push the skins on social media, and that'll make you up to a solid wage. It's like, well, first of all, that's not guaranteed. And as Benji says, he's not even sure that Jack's going to pay it out to them. You know, is it written in the contract? I think that's what's interesting about this, is that Benji has presumably seen the contract because he's talking to Encourage and he's had a look at it and all that. You know, it's where Benji's well positioned in the space. You know, when it comes to adult stuff like this, Benji's thoughts are always pretty valid, I think. And yeah, it seems like based on what he said, he's not convinced that that's necessarily going to be actually delivered in the way that Jack and Etienne is saying. And even if it is, like, how many skins are they expecting to sell? It's not like their team has got big names and personalities. I mean, they'd be better off giving Doug the bag with 3 rookies. And okay, it's not much of a bag, but, you know, would Doug take the chance to play back in the Pro League? He would at least sell some skins. So, I don't know. It's a confusing set of circumstances. The other thing, of course, that was said by Benji was about Dan Ghosty, and I always think it's interesting, Ben's perspective on a couple of topics. It was a clip that was a little spicy, so I thought I'd share it. Not going to discuss in massive detail, but there's been plenty of talk the last couple of years. Was Ghosty the issue, or were there other problems or whatever? Because Ghosty was on OpTic, things didn't end so well there in the Modern Warfare 2 season. Then he spent a couple of years on Thieves. Of course, last year, as Benji says, we don't know the full story. But one might argue, given the way that Thieves have started this year compared to the way that Ghosty has started this year, that it was LA Thieves and Scrap and HyDra that were the problem, rather than Daniel doesn't know how to win in finals Ghosty, which of course has changed around. Words to formal and the Ghosty edit, which I simply can't get out of my head right now. Just one final thing, Neum having joined the Thieves, maybe he's the man to fix that team over there. He's put his first YouTube video up. If you guys want to go check it out, you can find it on, you know, on Twitter or on YouTube or whatever. If I link it in the description and you click on it, it's not as good for the video because YouTube doesn't know the click-through rate, so it's actually better if you just search for it. So at least, you know, for his channel and the growth and everything. So anyway, Neum says, go check out my first YouTube. Who is that, he says, because this was the thumbnail, which I thought was pretty hilarious. Very, I mean, aBeZy, unfortunately, has been absolutely slammed with this AI-generated thumbnail. Scrap, I don't know, he looks kind of ginger. So anyway, Scrap thought that was kind of funny. But in truth to your thoughts on all of this stuff in the comments below, hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.